Hi there. It normally takes me about 10 minutes to explain how to spell my name and get past security at an airport. So trying to use the same 10 minutes to explain to an audience the what, the why, and the when of the social enterprise is an interesting challenge. I'm going to treat the audience with the respect it deserves. There's no point preaching to you about this. I thought it would be much easier if I just let you inside my head as to what I'm thinking personally about the social enterprise, where I think it came from, how I feel the company is dealing with it. First and foremost, let's look at technology, okay? From the time I was a child, I've always imagined that when I hear the word technology, it's going to be because it's the application of something to do good, right? To improve people's lives in some form or shape is at the core of why I would want technology. But there are far more learned people than me who've come up with much better definitions. I'm particularly sort of relaxed in using the work of Brian Arthur and Kevin Kelly in this context. Summarizing Brian Arthur may not be the way he wanted this perceived, but one way of looking at technology is that it exists for one of two purposes. Either to solve a need, invention takes place to solve a need, or it takes place in order to use a perceived effect. The examples that Brian Arthur uses are that when man wanted to fly a longer distance, you needed to go into a rarefied atmosphere, the air pressure changed, propellers would not do anymore, and the jet engine was invented as a time of need. At the other end of the spectrum, something like penicillin was an invention that took an existing effect and said, I observe something, and as a result of that which I observe, there is possibly a use I can put this to. So it can be driven by need or driven by the existence of an observed effect. Kevin Kelly, on the other hand, gave a slightly different view in what technology wants, and again, I learned something from it, which was that technology not only evolves, it speeds up evolution. So I like thinking that, yep, it would take millions of years for a human being to grow bulletproof skin, but I can go buy Kevlar. Right? It could take a very, very long time for me to get my nails as hard as steel, but I can actually get something to play a guitar with which can act like a finger extension to a plectrum. So technology doesn't just deal with serving a need, it doesn't just have the use of an expected outcome or effect, it also serves to speed up evolution. And I want to park that and say, that alone is not enough, because unless you can get some business value out of it, there is no point having technology. And business value, the best example I know is actually borrowing from the work of a guy named George Gilder, who said that every economic era is characterized by having certain abundances and certain scarcities. And the business model that is best able to use the abundances and the scarcities is the one that will gain. Let's look at the abundances we have today. We have near ubiquitous compute power and connectivity. As a result of that, the voice of the customer has changed from the past tense through the present tense to the future. We're able to understand something about human intention because in the past, the only place you could capture any data about how a customer thought was after he acted or she acted, at the cash point, at the cash register, in the ATM, or in the infrastructure used to serve inbound calls. As we've now had technology affordable in people's hands, ubiquitous, mobile, compute power, what you start doing is you're able to record what people are doing and what people will do. So intention started becoming part of what we could share for the first time in human history. But at the same time as those abundances of connectivity and compute power and intention, we had some scarcities. And we've heard about those scarcities even in these sessions today and yesterday. One of the scarcities is privacy. One of the scarcities is trust. Because as each economic era goes through the creation of new abundances, new scarcities emerge, and we have to have new ways of dealing with those scarcities because they are as important as the abundances. Let's park that aside and say, okay, we have technology and we have the business value of it. The third thing to make anything valuable in this form is that invention alone is not enough, right? An invention becomes valuable only through adoption, through implementation, through use. So what are the barriers to a technology being used? Those barriers are best understood by understanding that today, unlike steady state businesses, which is what, say, outsourcing or private equity have largely been based on, to say you can tariff up the cost of change, for an enterprise to survive today, you need to be able to move at least as fast as the pace of the market. Monolithic systems are incapable of providing the flexibility, the adaptability, the responsiveness needed, and the move to APIs, to ecosystems, to open platforms is partly because the age of vertical integration is no longer sustainable. If you look at the work of people like Joseph Tainter, who looked at the collapse of complex societies, or the work that Jeffrey West is doing at the Santa Fe Institute, you start realizing it's not just cities that are complex organisms or companies that are complex organisms. Actually, even systems as states can be pretty complex organisms. And you reach a point, if you go monolithic, where the cost of creating new value exceeds the value that is being generated because of the interconnectedness of those parts. You need to start going to small pieces loosely joined, which is why moving away from stacks towards ecosystems becomes more important. So when you hear the phrase the social enterprise, you should not be surprised that all we are trying to do is to look at these three pieces stated earlier. One, that the technology serves a useful purpose. Two, it serves that useful purpose by looking at the abundances that the world has created that did not exist in previous eras, by looking at the scarcities that did not exist in previous eras, and then by designing systems that are capable of engaging at the speed of the market, of being able to adapt and evolve at the speed of the market, sufficiently compartmentalized to be able to allow you to make that change without the cost of change becoming the barrier to movement. So what do you need today? Customers 20 years ago did not have to even give their email addresses because people didn't have their email addresses to give. Customers today are sharing, preferably with consent, preferably with informed consent, information about what they like, what they want to do, what they intend to do. As that information is made accessible, if you want to serve that customer well, you have to be able to listen to that customer. But listening alone is not enough. It's a two-way street, unless the customer can continue to speak. Because the transfer of power has taken place. Power is in the hands of the customer. The infrastructure by which the customer is talking to you, if you're a company, is in the hands of the customer and paid for by the customer. In the past, you see, if you look at what somebody like the Walmart did, they understood that distribution was a network. They could connect their distribution outlets and get more effective of service that way. 10 years later, Amazon realized that if you could connect up homes, distribution was actually at that point, and you could serve better, including more just-in-time inventory and warehousing. Today, we're recognizing actually the home is not the end of the network, it is the beginning, because human relationships, the best filter for every form of activity we have in a world where people have so-called information overload or choice overload, is the filter of the social network. Clay Shirky said that there is no such thing as information overload, there is only filter failure. The best filters are actually your own social network who know you, who understand what you want, who are able to advise and recommend to you, and on top of that, who actually allow you to participate. We are now in a world where all this is possible for the first time, that you can connect your customers, you can build a 360 profile of what they willingly share, provided, as I repeat, there is informed consent of what is shared and of its use. That is then moved on by saying, unless you have empowered your staff to engage with that information, the quality of service will drop. And finally, there is no point doing all this believing that the genie hasn't left the bottle. The customer is in control, which means that unless the customer forms part of that network, there is no social enterprise. The social enterprise, at the end of the day, is just that. A full 360 view of the customer in a social context, talking to connected staff, connected customers across an environment where the supply chain, partners, and products are part of it. That's my 10 minutes up. Thank you for your time.